All right, so let's play the thing and then make the words.
This is A Fit Mess with Zach and Jeremy.
All right, well, let's see if we can remember how to do this. It's been a couple months. Thanks for being there, if in fact you've come back and found us. I'm Jeremy, that guy's Zach.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
And this is weird now because we've done this a few times where you are 2,000 miles away in New York and I'm here in our palatial studios in Seattle. But this is the normal now. You have officially uprooted and moved across the country because you're the worst friend ever.
Yep, I'll take that trophy home.
And the focus of the conversation today, I think, is going to center largely around vulnerability because the very fact that we're doing the show the way that we are today is a little vulnerable for us. I think I can speak for both of us. I know this is how I feel coming into this one, that on every previous show we've done, we have had some sort of an actual qualified expert to share something that we hope you can apply to your life, to your routine, to in some way improve your life. Today it's just us. Today it's just us sharing our battles, our struggles, our losses. There have been many. Our wins, there have been a few. And for me, in that regard, the struggle to acknowledge those wins and to be okay with them and to even celebrate them has been difficult. So it's been a rough couple months, which explains why we've been away for a couple of months. Not that you noticed, you jerks. But let's start, Zach, with and let me start by saying, I hope this doesn't become just us whining at you about our problems. I hope this feels more like a way of sharing the struggle of what it is to have lives, and that in some way you can relate to whatever we experience here, and find comfort in being together through all of this. So with that being said, it's been a busy and difficult and emotional couple of months. And Zach, I know for you, probably more so because you have finally uprooted your family and moved across the country.
Yep, we have. And actually, to go back to your point that we don't have any qualified experts on this show, I actually think we do have two very qualified experts in getting down in the dumps and having to dig ourselves out of a hole, because I've been doing that for years.
That's true.
Multiple times. I feel I am most certainly a qualified expert at that particular skill here. And I'm going to have to talk a little bit about that because you're absolutely right. The last couple of months have been really long, really rough. And my wife and I had to say goodbye to a lot of good friends that we won't see on a regular basis. Fortunately, you and I get to talk on a regular basis to do the show, so that makes it a little bit easier, but it's been interesting. We've had to uproot the whole family and, like you said, move across the country, and everything is new and exciting and sad and a little exciting still.
For a little context, you have moved back really to what is home for most people. It's not like you moved to a completely new town where you know nobody. You've got a lot of family there, right? Yeah,
we technically came home. And we've got a lot of friends, we've got a lot of family. So, I mean, we're not lonely. We're not, walking into this with no friends like we did when we moved to Seattle 10 years ago. But the family is here. And while I appreciate and love my family on both sides, the people that we met in Seattle, I consider more my family because I got to choose them. I miss them more.
But I imagine that if it were me, I struggle with processing emotions at all. Like whether it's just straight up joy, just sadness, whatever. But to feel sort of the whirlwind, the mix of I'm home, that's a great feeling. But I miss my other home. And, but I get to see my family. But I have to deal with my family. I have this exciting new job. But, I also hate that I have to work so much. Like whatever it is, that ping-ponging for me gets overwhelming to a point where I often shut down. Are you experiencing any of that?
I actually haven't had time to shut down. I think it's been so busy and crazy for the last month. I mean, just moving in general is crazy, but the time frame of getting our stuff and moving into a house and getting it unpacked, I mean, we're still trying to unpack. The time that I really kind of went down into the dumps was actually the day that we left, the day that we flew out, and I had a 4-hour flight where I could actually think about that stuff. And normally I would really just ignore it and try and move on and not process it. This time I actually did process it, in real time, because I knew I wasn't going to have time to later on.
Yeah. That's something where we talked a little bit before the show that I still have not. And through conversations with friends that I've done some mental health work with, they helped me realize that for me, the month of July especially has been brutal. I think I've had, if you count today, which, is not quite, not even close to half done. We're doing this around noon. I've probably had 4 good days this month. And typically for me, when I get into a depression episode, it's like a 3-4 day deal. Then the clouds lift and I'm good for, lately a couple months or so. In this case, it has just hung on. And then there are days when it seems to lift, but like by the end of the day, it's right back, or it's back the next day. Like it's just been this crazy up and down, mostly down with minor windows of feeling up. And through talking to a friend of mine, she was saying when we get depressed, it's a block. It's something that we, something we're not dealing with. We're not processing something. Did something happen, in the last couple of weeks that you feel like you haven't dealt with? Or is there some grief? Is there some sadness? And as soon as she said grief, it triggered that you guys moved right around that time. And, I sort of had to immediately be there for my kids who were, the older one crying and really upset about, her friend moving away. My wife upset about you guys leaving. And I felt like I sort of had to go into that caretaker role and not deal with my stuff, but to help everyone sort of deal with theirs. And so I still don't know that I've fully processed you guys being gone. I mean, our lives have become really intertwined in the last few years through our kids and through, business ideas and through this podcast. And so I think it has been harder on me than I expected. And I don't think that I have allowed myself to just sit and feel that loss. And I'm not trying to dump on you and say, how dare you leave, but, how dare you leave? But
I'm only feeling slightly bad now. The next 2 weeks, I'm going to be depressed for making you depressed.
But this is an example of anything in my life, because I struggle so much to process my real, authentic emotions, because I generally don't give myself the time to deal with them. Once I finally do, the floodgates open and it's a sob fest and it all gets out and I can sort of, pick myself up and move on. I still haven't really done that. And so I think that's sort of the trigger. It's the episode, the depression is never really about the thing. The thing is the trigger. And then I just allow myself to go down these really well-worn mental pathways to really dark places, because that's how I've spent my life. That's how I've dealt with everything, is just shut down, feel awful, and, look for an easy way out. And it's not healthy, and it's something that I've spent the better part of the last, 6 or 7 years working on, which is also frustrating because you spend all this time and you do all this work, and then you end up so often starting over, like just having to climb your way back out and having to find a way to find the light that you had for a brief moment or whatever. And I am starting to have some wins with regard to that. And a lot of it is starting over. It's doing something physical, exercising, whatever. Like this last month, really since Memorial Day, my diet has been off the rails. I think going into Memorial Day, I was working out like 6 times a week. Now I'm working out 4 times a month. It's just everything is off the rails. And so all these tools, all these things I'd been doing to sort of deal with a lot of this, because a lot of that, a lot of the nutritional aspects and the physical aspects were helping me deal with the emotional stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I let those fall, then that's when the darkness rises again.
It's amazing how when that stuff goes away and your systems you're just not in your daily habits, it completely throws a loop or a wrench into your entire life. I can certainly speak from experience on that one. But it's work. Like, we all talk about wanting to be happy, and, it doesn't just happen. You have to put a whole bunch of work into it. And I think that's, 90% of the battle is realizing that you have to do the work. And, if you don't do the work, you're not going to be happy, and you're going to have months where things are going to be dark, and you just have to be okay with those moments and be able to move on from them.
Where I have to find ways to be compassionate with myself and give myself a break is realizing, like, in terms of all these tools that I've been using and having a lot of success with, I've only been doing that for really the last couple of years. I've been in therapy for a long time, but all of these other things that I've been, as a lot of our guests and people that we follow like to say, I've been biohacking my issues. Mm-hmm. That's all new to me. And so when I do fail, it's hard because when I do it, it works. When I stick to these things, I have success. And when I fail, I fall hard and I get mad at myself for not sticking with it because I can see the results. I can feel the results. And I know that I can do better, but there's something about, I believe this is a trait with depression, but there's something about the depression that wants to exist. And I can be mm-hmm. fully aware that if you just start working out again every day, if you keep fasting, eat better, all the things that I do, I can't convince myself to do them because the depression says, no, this is the song you know how to play. You stay mm-hmm. right here and you play this one because this one's comfortable. You've been doing this your whole life. All that stuff is nonsense. That's not real. You're putting a Band-Aid on me. I'm the real you. So that is really the hardest part, is getting to that point where I can finally face that voice and overcome it because it's so powerful.
Yeah, I fall into the same trap too. And you go back to what you're used to, and it's so easy to fall back into that for sure. I try and take the moments where I fall out of my eating pattern and my exercise pattern and get down into the funk. I really, really try and reframe it and tell myself, look, this is what happens when you don't do the things that you need to be doing, and just use it as evidence to help guide my way. Really. Mm-hmm. It's that moment where you're like, oh, whenever I stop doing all of these other things, I get into this mode. So I have to keep doing these other things.
Yeah.
You have to reframe it though. Otherwise you will go down that hole. And like I said at the beginning, where I'm a qualified expert at digging myself out of that hole, and because I've dug myself out so many times.
How are you having any of that now? Are you having to sort of dig your way back into using those tools and redeveloping those habits and patterns now that you're like kind of more settled at home and in your actual house and not in a period of transition?
Yeah, so we've been in our house now for just short of 2 weeks. So just some context, I've been in New York for almost 6 months now, but I've been in a little teeny apartment where I really couldn't exercise. And now we're moved into our house, and I have the time and, the space to do my exercises. So I really started when we moved in, the day we moved in, I started doing another Shanti program. And to me, I was really out of shape. I don't think you would be able to tell by looking at me, or at least that's what my wife tells me. Maybe she's just trying to make me feel better. But I could feel like the bloatedness, I felt bigger. My clothes weren't fitting right. Just going upstairs was winding me. I mean, I was, for what I'm used to, I was really out of shape. So I just dived back in. You know what? It hurt and it was painful. And, I'll have to go back to Shanti's, Transform 20, how he talks about the first 2 weeks this is just about commitment. Just get through the first 2 weeks, and, it doesn't get easier, but your motivation changes because you're changing your mind, you're changing your body. But so I've been kind of like hardcore back on my tools for about 2 weeks now. And, I think it's what's keeping me sane and grounded at this point, because we're still unloading the truck. We're still trying to get things through the door, and we're banging into walls and trying to paint things, and appliances installed. And, we have a pool and a hot tub. I've never taken care of either one of those before, so I'm learning how to do that. So it's really stressful at this point in my life, but going back to those foundational tools to help keep me grounded has been absolutely critical.
That's been, it's funny you mentioned the Shanti and the Transform 20 stuff. That's another area that I've been having trouble with, is that I did that program, and it's the first time I've ever started and finished an entire workout program. And the whole time he's in your head saying, this is you. The voice in your head needs to be you. You need to be motivating you. And I buy into it, and it totally makes sense. But something in me knew the day that I finished it that I didn't know what I was going to do next. Because I had this routine. I had this commitment that I'd made to myself. I had this external motivator that said, all you got to do is finish this program and you will win. Well, I won. Congratulations. But now what?
Right.
What do I do with that medal? And so I started just kind of, like there's a bunch of bonus workouts. I would just sort of do those intermittently. I would, I would kind of offset. I'd bike to work, and then the next day I'd work out. But I didn't have a routine. I don't have something that I'm committed to doing. So I've just been floundering. And so that decision fatigue every day of like, oh, well, what am I going to do today? Okay, so then I have to plan my day around, is this something I'm going to do? Am I going to go to the gym, and how do I pack for that? Am I going to ride my bike, and how am I going to pack for that? And the decision fatigue starts to just wear you out. You're like, God, I'm just sick of thinking about it. I want to just have my routine, my pattern that I follow. So that's been a struggle for me too. And I thought about restarting Transform 20, but my schedule has been really inconsistent lately with everything that's been going on. And so that for that 6-week period really was the anchor that helped me feel like, well, if I'm going to do this work, then I'm not going to eat bad, because what's the point of doing the work if I'm going to eat bad? And then, once I'm eating right, then I stick to a schedule, a 16/8 intermittent fasting schedule. And that helps regulate everything and helps burn the fat and make my brain function the way I want it to. It's like that the workout routine is block A, and then everything sort of builds from there for me. But I know now, it's funny, I was thinking about today, the shows that we've done. I remember talking to Gretchen Rubin about external motivators. And I need something, once I'm in, but I need something to kick me in the ass to do it.
Right.
Even an example, you and I are talking about are trying to plan a family trip to Disney World with our friends. And that's something that I would, if it weren't for you, I would spend the next 5 years thinking about and talking about and dreaming about. That would be a thing. But every few days I get a text from you. It's like, how about this house? I want to book this one this weekend. Can we do it? Like, and that reminds me of our trip to Disneyland. You and I went to Disneyland a few weeks ago. And had it not been for you pushing me to get out of my comfort zone and go on the rides that had terrified me my whole life, I would still be afraid of them, would still be worried about the day that I take my kids to Disneyland, and I'm too afraid to go on the rides that they at, 8, 9, 5, whatever, want to go on. I would feel like a huge failure as a dad that I couldn't share those moments with them. So that was, that was one of the small wins that I've had in the last few weeks was, with your help and the external motivation to overcome some of those fears. Like, I'm not about to get on any big ass roller coasters or anything, but if my daughter says, hey, I want to go on Hyperspace Mountain, I'm going to go, it'll probably kill me, but let's go. Like, I can do it.
Yes. I mean, you went on a big ass roller coaster. Space Mountain is not a little roller coaster. I mean, it's significant. I'm still extremely proud that you tackled that and went on it. That was pretty impressive.
But again, it's that external motivation. And, I know it frustrates my wife that I've gone to Disneyland with her and she couldn't motivate me to do those things. And, so there's a little bit about, what is it about, going with Zach that you can do this stuff? That's a bunch of shit. And I'm like, well, you're right. That is a bunch of shit. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why. It's just sometimes the timing works out or whatever.
Yeah. Well, in this particular case, it was great because they changed. I don't know when they did it, but they changed Space Mountain to be Hyperspace Mountain, and it became a Star Wars ride.
Right.
So you kind of have to do all the Star Wars rides, and at least that was my argument that I posed to you at the time. And I didn't think there was a chance in hell that you would get on it, but I said, hey, it's a Star Wars ride, and that seemed to be the turning point for you.
But for context, we went there to experience Galaxy's Edge, the new Star Wars land in Disneyland or whatever. So that was the theme. Like, we were there to live in Star Wars, to live out our childhood, fantasies or whatever of being in that world. So that was, at that point, that was the only experience Star Wars related that we hadn't had, because we'd done everything else. And it's been Hyperspace Mountain for a long time, and that wasn't enough for me before. But because that was just where my head was the whole time, and I'd gotten over the fears, and I know there are tens and tens of people listening to this going like, you were afraid of Thunder Mountain? Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Or you were afraid of cars? Yeah, I was terrified of cars, but I did it, and it's a small win. But I acknowledge that I sound ridiculous to most people. But for me, this is something that has haunted me like most of my life. So you were right, though. It was like, there's this just one more thing. And again, it was building blocks. I'd taken all these other little steps and gotten more comfortable and felt like I could push myself. And so I did. And I was very proud of that. I'm still proud of that, because now I'm looking forward to having those experiences with my kids. I took my kid on a ride here in Seattle the other day. It's kind of like Soarin', but it's in Washington. You're in this like virtual hang glider thing, but I was psyched because I was like, this is a taste of something I'm going to be able to do with my kids soon, and I'm not going to have the same fear holding me back. And that just translates into so many other things in my life. It's just how much and how often I let fear hold me back from doing big things to improve my life.
Yeah, it's amazing how it is just so amazing how much fear can just keep you down. And once you look past it, I mean, it's still scary, but there's a sense of accomplishment there. I think you should post the picture of you on cars.
Wait, it wasn't the I thought it was the Space Mountain one that was especially bad.
No, the Cars one, I think the Space Mountain one was pretty bad, but the Cars one, there's context behind it in that it was your second ride.
Oh, you're right.
So you knew it was coming.
Yeah. Oh, I still hate the drop. I still hate that feeling.
But you did it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of other accomplishments, and somehow I wasn't able to celebrate this one even as much as I was able to celebrate the rides, but I actually met what was my weight loss goal.
Nice.
When you and I went camping, not this last Memorial Day, but the Memorial Day before, when I decided I was going to give this crazy keto diet thing a chance and maybe start working out a little bit, I set a goal for myself of dropping what was 55 pounds, and I nailed it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And the worst part is the day I stood on the scale and nailed it, I was so depressed that I couldn't acknowledge it. I couldn't celebrate it. I was just numb to it. And I posted a picture of the graph of the weight loss over the last, year and a half or whatever to get to that point, and shared that I was having a hard time experiencing the joy of the accomplishment. And a lot of people responded and were really supportive, and I really appreciated that, because it just helped me. I needed some way to mark it, to acknowledge it, to make it somewhat of a celebration. So to be able to share it in that way was really good, but I still, I think because I still have work to do, I'm not satisfied with, I thought I would get to this point and go like, okay, I'm good. I just need to maintain. I feel like I still have some work to do. So maybe that is part of what's holding me back, but it was really difficult to meet that goal and not just be able to celebrate. But what's been weird is that this whole time that my routine has been off the rails, diet not out of control, but not good. Working out, not good. The scale hasn't budged, and so I'm trying to tell myself that doesn't matter. Like you feel bad. That's the important part. Stick to that. But it's so easy to go, oh well, I'm being a fat lazy slob, and I'm not suffering the consequences. The scale isn't moving. Look at me. I can just do whatever I want now. Which I know is complete crap. And so I'm trying to apply the same mental rules of how do you feel to my work? Because if I paid attention to the scale, I would have felt really bad for the last year at how slow it was taking to get where I needed to get. And so now I'm just trying to remember, how do you feel? And I don't feel good.
Well, and one of the important things you need to remember too is what you consider eating like crap now and feeling fat, feeling really not feeling good, what that is today is vastly different than what it was a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, totally.
you're more aware of it now, and you know what it's like to feel good. Once you know what it's like to feel good, it doesn't take a whole lot to feel bad and notice that difference. So for as bad as you think you were eating, I'd be willing to bet that your normal eating a year and a half ago was way worse.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, it's a long journey, but you've built habits and conditioned yourself so that you're gonna, when you're eating terrible, it's not nearly as bad, and the scale isn't going to change as much as it would have a year and a half ago. So
Yeah.
you need to acknowledge that, and congratulations. That's a huge amount of weight to have lost, and I don't care how long it took.
Yeah.
You did it. So
yeah, no, it feels good. It is. I'm having a hard time even saying it's something I'm proud of, but it is something I'm trying to be proud of.
You should be very proud of it.
And I'll get there. All right.
You will.
Well, I think I've whined and complained enough. I don't know. You got more? Anything else you need to vent?
Oh, I've always got stuff I can vent about, but I think we'll keep it to a minimum today. I think we're really just going to get back into a rhythm of these shows. We did have to take a little break just because life got in the way, but it's something that we need to. Not having these shows has actually been part of my depression, I think, over the last month, is not talking to you, and the whole fact that I moved and had to leave and all that. But this has been such a regular part of my life over the last 9 months we've been doing this or so.
Yeah.
That it needs to come back into my life as part of my I almost consider this a nice therapy session, and it's relatively cheap to do.
Yeah, it's true. And I agree. That's something that I was talking to somebody about the other day, that when I have staples like this, if nothing else, if 3 people ever listen to this show, it is an accountability tool for me. It makes me think about where am I at in my life and what am I trying to share with people that in some way can help them with their life. So I need to be able to walk in with a story to tell that, I've failed, or I've accomplished something, or I learned something and I want to pass it on. If I don't have any of that, if I don't have an external motivator, this show as a resource to make me process things, make me think about things, then I don't. It's easy to just sort of let all of those things go. So having this as a regular tool also is helpful. And it's just funny because that also relates to therapy. When I see that I have a therapy session coming up in a couple of days, I start thinking about, what's going on in my life that I need to work through. And I start working through it just by the nature of I have this external motivator that I need to be ready for, that I need to prepare. So I know I'm learning now, really just in the last few days leading up to this conversation, how much I need to install or somehow put in place external motivators to make me accountable to myself and to those motivators to actually live the kind of life that I'm trying to live and to hopefully be an example, mostly to my kids, but also to anyone that this might be helpful for.
Yeah, anyone who's listening and getting some value out of this, that's great. But again, this holds me accountable, and like exercise, we've been doing it pretty ad hoc, figuring out, hey, let's talk on this day at this time. And we really just need to schedule it and have it on a regular cadence.
Yep.
Like exercise, right? I mean, if you figure out what you're going to do for exercise for the next 2 months, you don't have to think about it. You know what you have to do, and there's no decision fatigue like you were talking about. So that's my goal, is to make sure that we get this on our calendars and that it's happening regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's it. I think we're good for now. There you go. A very stripped down, very vulnerable, very raw show. No bells, no whistles, just us and the voices in our heads.
Yes, but these are the things that we all struggle with, right? We all have days like this, and I think this is probably just our way of saying, you know what? It's not always about making progress and learning new tools and new techniques. Sometimes it's about digging yourself out of a hole and going back with all the things that work and just getting yourself back on the bike.
Yep. So grab a shovel, grab a bike, and meet us back here. Hopefully in a couple weeks. We're going to try and get back to we're going to get back into a regular routine of having an episode available every couple weeks. And you'll find that at thefitmess.com. We love your feedback. If you want to give us a call, leave a message at 206-659-7667. You can rewind that or just listen now, 206-659-7667. If you want to just leave us a message, share what, your reaction to this, share your struggle, share the things that you do to get yourself out of a hole, what works for you. Would love to hear any, how you relate to any of this conversation. You can do so there. And we're always on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and all of the links to all of that are on our website, thefitmess.com. I didn't even talk about how much non-alcoholic beer has been my savior this summer. But part of that, big part of that has been our very generous sponsor, Bravest Brewing Company. They make some of the best non-alcoholic beer you can find on the market. You can get a link to them on our website as well while you're looking for all the other ways to get in touch with us. Thank you to them. Thank you for listening. And thank you, Zach, for making this work today. And thank you, Universe, for allowing this all to happen. That's all we got. We'll see you in a couple weeks at thefitmess.com.
See you, everyone.
Bye.